What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment and just keep those comments respectful. And guess what? If you want to support your favorite podcaster, the link to do so will be in the episode description. Today, it's going to be a little two-parter, and we got to start with the elephant in the room, no pun intended. Roll Tide Willie, he always says, blitz, Bama, blitz. Well, shit, we are getting blitzed right now. It has been a week and 2 days since the GOAT, Nick Saban, retired. And when that happens, when a coach retires or a coach leaves for a new position elsewhere, the portal opens for 30 days where your roster can get ransacked. And look, granted, there were some of our players that were probably going to um, transfer anyway, like in Isaiah Bond. But man, we are losing some guys. We are losing some guys that were committed in the 2025 class that have decommitted, have opened up their commitment. Some have committed elsewhere. Some are still, giving Coach DeBoer a chance. Which, look, I'm fine with it. If it's a high school student, they committed to Coach Saban and his staff. Coach Saban and his staff are no longer here, and so they have their futures to think about. It makes perfect sense. I get it. I understand. And so we have to showcase it on the field that, hey, Alabama is still Alabama, that Coach DeBoer is the guy to lead us, and that there is a place for you here in Tuscaloosa, and we will still get you to the NFL. You will still be able to make a life for you and your family. So that's on Coach DeBoer to be able to provide that stability and show that, hey, what we've had and what we've grown over years, not just the Saban years, but even years prior, under Coach Bryan, Coach Stallings. It's here. It's here to stay, and this is just a new era of that. Shout out to the guys that have stayed. The Jaden Roberts, the Tyler Bookers, the Ty Simpsons, the Jalen Milrose, the Malachi Moores of the world. Um, Shout out to those guys for wanting to be a part of this, giving Coach DeBoer a chance. And we're going to see what happens in spring ball. We're going to see what happens in summer and fall camp. And we're going to see when games get played. But, we've lost a lot of good guys. Like I said, Isaiah Bond, who was one of our better receivers last year. Amari Niblack, who is kind of a walking mismatch at the tight end position. A guy that was doing some good things. Those guys committed to the University of Texas, so they're going to be playing with Coach Sark. It's only one ball, so we'll see how that goes. It seems that a lot of guys decide to go to Texas from Alabama to play with Coach Sark, but not one has panned out yet. So that will be very, very interesting to see how Isaiah and Amari are able to create value for themselves in a new situation. I wish both of those guys would have stayed, especially when you know how Coach DeBoer utilizes pass catchers and how Ryan Grubb and his offense, how explosive they can be. I mean, these guys have maybe going to have guys drafted, two receivers drafted in the first round, and it could have been a third if Jalen McMillan didn't miss most of the year with a nagging knee injury. Um, Obviously, we lost the best player, at least the best young player in college football, especially on the defensive side of the ball, Caleb Downs, SEC, essentially rookie of the year, so freshman of the year. Won a lot of awards, led our team in tackles, was just a guy. He's going to be playing on Sundays for a long, long time. And so losing him was a big blow. But obviously we lost Coach Saban. Everybody wants to, if you're a defensive back, you wanted to play under Coach Saban. And then we lost his lead recruiter, Coach Robinson, Coach T. Rob, who took a co-DC job with the University of Georgia. We tried to offer him a full-time role here, but I think he had already made up his mind. Maybe a little bit of tampering going on, but it is what it is. We're trying to get Caleb to commit to UGA. We know that UGA and Ohio State now are the two at the top of the order in terms of getting his services for the next football season at least. And then recently, it's like last night we get a commit from a Washington player who transferred, Austin Mack, and then a few hours later, in the wee hours of the morning, you get the alert that the number one overall quarterback recruit, Julian Sayin, he is transferring now. And there's some mixed messages. There's some he was always going to transfer. There was Coach DeBoer and Coach Grubb didn't think he was the best mold for the team and their offense, which, look, I find it hard to believe that they're going to just shun the number one overall player at that position away before the spring. I mean, you at least want to get the guy in and see what he can do. So I find that hard to believe, but at this point in time, man, it's so hard to know what's right and what's wrong. And again, we've had a lot of guys stay. I believe it's 28 players that went to the portal. It's probably a few more to come, so we're going to be looking out for that. And obviously, when you get to spring ball, seeing things, you might have some more guys transfer out, but you'll have more guys that can transfer in at that time. And look, man, it's been open season on Coach DeBoer in this 30-day period, and it's only been uh, ooh, what's today's date? It's only been 9 days. Yeah, it's only been 9 days. So we have 21 more of this, 21 more days of this. Um, of where it's open season on our roster. But at the same time, because of the rule where if a coach leaves, there's a 30-day window for players from their old team to transfer. Coach Saban's retirement has actually created a domino effect where now Washington players are available. We're having three of their guys in this weekend. You're having Jabbar Muhammad. You're having, I know we're having a receiver and we're having an offensive lineman who was a big part of that Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. And so we'll definitely need that. So we can get some guys from Washington. Washington ends up hiring Arizona's coach. So now you have some guys. I know there's a cornerback that everybody likes, a receiver everybody really liked. His last name is McMillan too, but he decided that he was going to stay um, at Arizona. And then there's rumors of Coach Harbaugh in Michigan, fresh off a national championship. He may be going to the NFL. The Chargers job is pretty much his based on reports. So it's going to be open season on that roster. So can a guy like Will Johnson, will he be up for sale? Who knows? Will a guy like Donovan Edwards, who came back for his last year, what will be his situation? So they have a lot of guys on that roster that a lot of teams, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ohio State, even, they're going to be after these guys. So that's going to be interesting. And some are saying that if Coach Harbaugh takes the Michigan job, look out for Brian Kelly at LSU. It's weird to me. I mean, you get a great job in the SEC, one of the best programs in the SEC, but this is his region. And so there's a chance that Coach Brian Kelly could take that Michigan job where I mean, granted, it's a little less pressure to win a national championship at that point than it is at LSU, especially with Coach Saban gone. Everybody's expecting everyone else that's been at the top, the UGAs, the LSU's, the Ole Misses, and then you got Texas and Oklahoma coming in. They're looking to those guys to step their game up with Coach Saban going, thinking that Alabama's going to be on some downfall, but game still has to be played. And so if that happens where Coach Kelly goes to Michigan, now it's open season on the LSU roster. And guess what? I know good and well that those folks in Tuscaloosa, they will get together to throw money, anything they can get at Harold Perkins to get him to come to Alabama. So, they have a lot of good players on their roster too. So, everybody's kind of taking their pound of flesh. They're making jokes like, oh, people are leaving the big bad Alabama. We told y'all they were here for Nick Saban, but newsflash, players commit to coaches. They don't commit to universities. So it could easily be your program. In the past, it has been some of these people's programs that have been subject to this. And so that's why I'm not one of those folks that are like, oh, poor Bama. Like, we got to change things. Like, yes, we have to change things. Do we have to change things just because Bama now is going through it? No. I think we just know the transfer portal has been bad for a long time, especially in this day and age now where players are just leaving. One, they don't really want to compete, but they're also having opportunities to go make more money. You're having coaches and people affiliated with universities trying to poach players throughout the season on other teams. And there's really no checks and balances with this whole thing. And so the NCAA, per usual, just assumes that it's going to be one way, and then they're forced to react instead of having safeguards in place. And so they're going to end up making changes. We know they're going to end up making changes. Do we know when? No. Do we know what the changes will be? No. But if I had to guess, it's probably going to be in the next couple of years. It's going to be to an extreme, and it's probably going to hurt players more than anything because, of course, they're going to hurt the young men and women when we talk about other sports that aren't really getting paid their worth. They're going to be the ones that get hurt the most, while the multi-millionaire coaches and the multi-billionaire universities and athletic programs, they'll be just fine. And so, one thing, a lot of the discourse around, and look, not just Alabama's situation, but the transfer portal situation in general, is it's always easy to blame the players for this and saying the game has to change now because these kids are out of control. And so I want to press rewind on that a little bit. And look, I'm not saying that players and maybe even some of their family and loved ones aren't responsible to where we are now in college football, but we got to know where we started. And a big thing that has changed is coaching mobility. There used to be a point in time where if you were a coach and you got a really, really good job, especially on a Power Five level, if you were winning games, you stayed. And that didn't necessarily mean national championships, but if you are competing for maybe conference championships or you're a fringe 8 or 7, 8, 9 win team every year and you're playing in some of the most prestigious bowl games and bringing some honor towards your institution, having successful recruiting classes, you typically could stay a long time. And usually when coaches moved, a lot of times it was because, they may wanted to take that next step at the NFL level. Sometimes you had folks at the G5 level. They wanted to go Power Five. And I remember you used to see a coach stay at least through one recruiting class. Now, I mean, if a coach gets offered just a tad bit more money, a tad bit more resources, they're off to the races and leaving all these kids that have committed to play for them by the wayside. And so it's easy to blame the players, but let's go back to, hey, the leaders in charge, the coaches, the adults, so to speak, they're a big reason why college football is the way it is. Because why would a player commit to a program for 4 years and we're in a state of college football where a head coach may not last that long. And not because he or she is a bad coach and they're getting fired, which you understand that even as a kid, you understand the business that if we're not yielding the results that are needed to be successful, then yes, things will change. Coaches will be fired, scholarships will be taken, that sort of thing. But now it's like guys are just leaving year after year from this job to that job because of the money being poured into their accounts. And guess what? The young men and women have caught on, especially in football and men's basketball, where, hey, we're leaving too. We're going to the highest bidder. The same way universities are poaching you throughout the year and you're supposed to be sold on us, but your agent's talking to this university and that university. Guess what? My representative now will be talking to this university and that university. And if I feel like I can't make the best value for myself at this institution, I will utilize the Rolodex that my representation has collected over the course of an off season or a whole season, and we will evaluate whether you deserve to have our services. And that's what's going on. And I think a big part of what happens with coaches now is I think the college football playoff hurt that a little bit. Like you used to hear about coaches leaving here and there, but now guys are just hopping from one team to the next. Like I remember when I was young and Lane Kiffin he gets the head job at Tennessee, lasts a year, and then goes straight to USC. And there's this, what? You leave after a year? You just don't do that. There was a time where there was a standard that coaches stick to, you know, a place for a while, especially after a successful season, right? So coaches really started that trend when in the college football playoff, where now we are saying bowl games essentially are meaningless. Your 7 win, your 8 win, your 9 win, sometimes even your 10 win seasons are meaningless because you weren't one of the 4 teams chosen to pursue a national championship. And so whatever bowl you're in, it doesn't matter. And so that's why your star athletes aren't going to play in those bowl games. That's probably why you're not going to last. You're going to go to another job that can get you there, hopefully in the top four. And I remember in the BCS era where, look, you wanted to win a national championship. That was every team's goal coming into the year. But you knew only two teams could get it. But everyone else, their seasons were still valued in a way. Coaches were still valued in a way. And now it just seems that coaches aren't valued unless they're in the college football playoff. And if they are in positions where they can truly build a program like Coach Kyle Whittingham at Utah, he is one of a kind where, hey, I may not be in the playoffs every year, but I'm building my program the right way. I'm creating young men to put them out in the workforce, putting some guys out in the league, and we are just fine where we are. He is one of the last of a dying breed among many, where coaches are now chasing the bag and chasing the opportunity to be one of those four teams. Guess what? The coach we have now at Alabama, he was one of those coaches. Granted, he got to the national championship 10 years ago. He is staying at Washington. It doesn't matter who's called him. He's staying at Washington. He's going to build his guys. He's going to pursue another national championship opportunity. But now Bama comes calling this like, hey, what are my odds? Do I have better odds of getting to the college football playoff, especially with the 12-team playoff with Alabama and SEC, or bringing Washington to the Big Ten, where I'm losing most of my team that are graduating, that are going to the league? What's the best chance for me right away to be back in that number? And Bama is his best chance of being back in that number. And so while we can be upset as fans of what's happening to Alabama's roster, also understand what's going to be happening to Washington's roster. Understand what's going to be happening to Arizona's roster. Understand what may happen to Michigan's roster and LSU's roster. And what about UGA's roster when Kirby may want to take that leap at the NFL? He's already been getting interviews. The Falcons have interviewed him before. So he's already getting interviews to the next level. After so many times, the guy's telling you that he has a vested interest to at least try and see if he can make it. That's the best league in the world. So of course, if you're a player, you want to play there. And guess what? If you're a coach that really cares about themselves and values themselves and has that moxie about themselves, they want to coach in the NFL too. They want to show that they can be successful, not just in college, but in the pros as well. And so guess what? Kirby Smart may be someone that does that. And then if a high profile job like UGA opens up, where does that leave a guy like Lane Kiffin? What about a guy like Sark? You might say he'll never leave Texas, but what if the NFL comes knocking? He's already been an offensive coordinator there before. And so that's not to, put other organizations on blast or, you know, you know, or jinx y'all in any way, but just saying that's where we are now. And so there will be changes. We know changes are definitely coming, but I think we need to kind of lay off the kids a little bit, kind of saying that, oh, well, they don't want to compete and they just want to get money. Well, guess what? The adults have done a really great job of showing them the example that, hey, if I don't want to compete in this conference, I'm leaving. If I want more money, I'm leaving. And so that's the example that is now the people in charge in college football. That's the example they've set. The young men are following suit, and you can't be upset at that. If you're not going to make the changes at the top, don't worry about what's happening at the other levels until you want to really focus on what's the core reasoning for why we are here. And greed is a large reason. We don't want to share revenue with student athletes, which they should be getting. You have folks working 9 to 5s having to essentially fund your athletic program to buy players because, oh, NIL isn't affiliated with the university. Come on. We were born at night, not last night. So this is where we are. This is college football. What's going to change? Because at the end of the day, I guess what? Alabama's going to be okay. They're going to be able to recoup what they've lost in this 30-day window. They're going to be able to get what they want. But will other programs be able to have that same ability to bounce back? Will a South Alabama have that ability to bounce back? Which they just lost their head coach to Alabama staff. What about Buffalo? They just lost their head coach to Alabama staff. So that's the things we have to think about is What do we want college football to be? And look, I think it's been beneficial for a lot of parties. I still think the student athletes are getting short end of the stick. But at the end of the day, you can't put all the blame on 18 to 22-year-olds for doing what they're seeing 35, 40, 50 year olds doing. If it's about business, we're going to conduct business. And so there are just some things I like to see. Um, maybe having buyouts. Again, they keep saying you can't do that because NIL isn't affiliated with the school. Well, look, first of all, let's stop lying about that. So, look, a player signs to a university, and I've seen this buzzed around on social media. Maybe have them sign a 4-year contract, so to speak, with the NIL. If they decide to transfer, hit the transfer portal, the school they transfer to then has to pay that NIL fee. The same way if a coach wants to leave for another job, they have to be bought out or they have to buy it out. So that may be what we're headed for, but that's going to one take some admittance that hey, we are in a pay for play era right now. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Let's stop lying to our fans because our fans already know what it is. Just like our fans in baseball, new players were juicing, but who gave a damn when everybody was hitting home runs and it was exciting. So that's just where we are with college football, where the change is going to be. But for one thing, a change has to come with who we're putting most of the blame on. And it can't be the 18 to 22-year-olds that are just trying to create opportunities for themselves and generational opportunities for their families. And so, look, the guys that stayed, man, love you. Um, Happy to have you guys compete, have a chance to get another national championship. Because guess what? I know the outside noise is talking, and they think it's over. But guess what? You got a whole spring, you got a whole summer, you got a whole fall to get yourself ready and to be in position to win yet another national championship. And you guys have the guys in the room right now that can do it. And for the guys that have gone and decided into the transfer portal and going on to other places. Look, do what you gotta do, but no disrespect. But as my guy Malachi Moore says, if they ain't wearing crimson, you know the rest. You know the rest. If they ain't wearing crimson, F 'em. That's essentially what it is. And that doesn't mean you want them. Now I've seen some people wishing injuries and all that. No, I don't want that. Look, go do what you got to do, but just understand that it's not going to affect what they got going on in Tuscaloosa. It's not going to affect those guys that are sticking to their respective brotherhoods and want to make history. Have a chip on their shoulder. The players have a chip on their shoulder. The coach has a chip on his shoulder as well. And so we'll see. We'll see what comes. If Bama will rise from the ashes and be in that number, be one of those teams that constantly competes for championships. We'll see. That's up for them to prove it. But we can talk. It's January. We can talk all we want to. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what happens in between those lines and who's going to be ready. Bama, hopefully, it's you. Now, switching gears, going to close the show talking about NFL divisional round. Still in the heat of the NFL playoffs. Had a pretty decent wild card weekend. Were quite a few blowouts. Um, but still, I kind of enjoyed the games. And so now the last four kind of stand in each conference. We'll start with the NFC. You got the 49ers, who were the number one overall seed, so they got to bye. They got an extra week to rest, get their guys healthy. They're going to be playing the Packers. The Packers smoked the Dallas Cowboys, and y'all know I did not think that was going to happen. Like I did not see that happening at all. Like maybe I could have saw the Packers sneaking out a win, maybe getting a field goal, but the score I think they ended up winning by 16, I believe, but that score does not indicate truly how much of a beatdown it was. I mean, Jordan Love looked phenomenal. Honestly, looked like a melanated Aaron Rodgers, if you want to be honest. Just the throwing mechanics, the throws that he was making, utilizing his mobility at the right times, just making it look like pitch and catch against that Dallas Cowboys secondary, which we know, look, is suspect if they can't get pressure on the quarterback. And that Packers offensive line, my God, whoever that offensive line coach is, I hope the Saints can poach him and pay him whatever he wants. But he had those guys ready to play, and they did the damn thing. They passed whenever they wanted. They ran the ball whenever they wanted. It was felt like a glorified scrimmage, and the pressure that they put on the Cowboys' offensive line, their defense, and the the Green Bay defense being able to generate pressure on Dak Prescott, forcing them into in turnovers. Had two pick sixes, if I'm not mistaken. I know he threw a pick six before half, so I don't know if it was two, but I knew he threw a pick six before half, which really blew the game wide open. I mean, I didn't expect it. I don't think anybody really expected it. Not that we didn't think that the Packers could win, but to win in a fashion that they did, wow, that was amazing. And now they're going up against another vaunted defense, but I think the 49ers defense is a little bit more for real than the Dallas Cowboys because you don't see too many weaknesses in the 49ers defense. I think they're starting cornerback got hurt, so that's going to be some growing pains. But man, that pass rush, I'm really interested to see how they affect Jordan Love. If they affect Jordan Love, want to know how committed Green Bay will be to the run. Because 49ers have an explosive offense. Look, led by Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, obviously Brock Purdy being the quarterback. If San Francisco gets a 10, 14-point lead, basically a two-possession lead, and it's forced to be in the hands of Jordan Love. See, last week it wasn't forced to be in his hand, but if it comes down to that, will Jordan Love be able to handle that pressure where those guys are just playing with their heads on fire and they know they just got to get to the quarterback? So I'll be interested to see how that goes. The Packers are on the road again. It's hard to beat the 49ers in that stadium. Trust me, my Saints have been victims of that same stadium. And I think the Green Bay Packers, as much as I like Jordan Love and how he's ascended, as probably going to be coming into next year as a top 10 quarterback and maybe top three, top five in the NFC alone. Um, I I'm just not comfortable right now picking against the 49ers. There are a select few teams that I think could beat the 49ers uh, in all three phases to win that game. And I just don't know if Green Bay is there yet. I could be wrong. But if I had to pick, I'm going to pick the 49ers to make it to the NFC Championship game again. And now we got the Detroit Lions who are going to be hosting Tampa Bay Bucks. And look, let me start with the Bucks because they surprised me. Remember last episode, Logan and I, we thought the Eagles were going to beat them by a country mile. Yes, the Eagles were coming in losing 5 of the last 6 games, but you thought, okay, they're getting a little bit healthy. Yeah, they're going to be without A.J. Brown, but the way they can run the ball and set the line of scrimmage, um, you got to trust Jalen Hurts will do his thing, not just with his arm, but with his legs, which he didn't do much of the latter at all. And some say he's been injured all season with a knee injury, so maybe that was part of that. And look, it was a relatively close game for the most part, a defensive masterpiece by both teams. I mean, the Eagles, who had some struggles, they were getting some key stops. They really were. The Bucks had some moments where they were getting what they wanted. K. Dot, the tight end, young tight end, was having a field day. Um, Mike Evans was quiet for the most part, but had some clutch catches towards the end. Trey Palmer, rookie, went to LSU and Nebraska, broke the game open. I mean, look, the Eagles had chances, right? But they just could not capitalize at all. And the Bucks eventually just kind of ran away with this thing. And look, I know what their defense can do. I just didn't think that it would be that dominant. And some of it had to do with the Eagles' play calling, but I mean, they made everything so tough. Made it tough on the running game, made it tough in the passing game. They just kicked the Eagles' ass. Let's just call a spade a spade. And so if they could bring that defense and the way they were kind of able to run the ball, they could pull an upset against the Lions. Look, we know how explosive that offense can be. Got a two-headed monster in the backfield with David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. So do they get off somehow? But we know that, hey, despite the weaponry with the Sam Laportas and the Amon-Ra St. Browns of the world, if you can get some pressure on Jared Goff, you can make his life a little bit more difficult. make him prone to some mistakes. And if he makes mistakes and Tampa can maybe get a lead, a 6 or 7 point lead, maybe 10-point lead, and more pressure is getting put on Jared Goff, a lot of things can change. It could be really, really interesting. But in a game of this magnitude, a lot of it, in my opinion, comes down to coaching. And I just think Dan Campbell is ready for this, man. This is his moment. I think he has these guys ready. I think they are going to come out firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. They got CD Deuce back in the defensive backfield. So they got their energy, they got their heart, and they're going to be coming with it, man. And guess what? I think their offensive line is going to take the challenge. I think Dan Campbell has told those guys, we don't win the game without you. If you get your asses beat in the trenches, we will lose this game. So whatever the result is going to be coming down to you. And I think those guys, one of the best offensive line units in the game, I think they're going um, to get the job done. And so, like, I got the Lions in this game. I got them winning. I got them winning by between 4 and 7, no more than a touchdown. I do think it's going to be a fairly close game, just because I think the defenses are going to do really well, and I just think the Lions' offense is going to make maybe one or two more plays a little bit more than what the Baker Mayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be able to do. Um, and look, I think the 49ers Packers game is going to be relatively close as well. So my NFC championship matchup, I think is going to be the 49ers versus the Lions with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And so we want to jump to the AFC. Got the number one seed Ravens, who are coming off a bye, playing the phenomenal, coming out of nowhere Cinderellas of the NFL, Houston Texans, a team that had the number 2 and 3 overall picks in last year's draft. They won their division and won a playoff game against Cleveland Browns. Um, and I mean, they tore Cleveland a new one, forced back-to-back pick sixes by Joe Flacco, who was on a tear the past 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, they made that Cleveland defense that we talk so much about have a guy in Myles Garrett, who arguably might be the defensive player of the year. They were just non-factors. Um, the Texans just got whatever they wanted offensively. And for a rookie quarterback to be able to get whatever he wants offensively against that level of defense, what the Cleveland defense has meant this year, so much so that Myles Garrett is being talked about as not just a defensive player of the year candidate, but an MVP candidate. And they just basically neutralized these guys, right? So they're on one. They maybe have the coach of the year and Coach D'Amico Ryans, Roll Tide. That's my guy. But it's Lamar Jackson, man. It's Lamar. And knowing the offseason Lamar had, where not that teams didn't want him, but well, they said they didn't want him, or that they weren't going to sign him. We knew that was a little bit of collusion, but just the disrespect sent the way of a top 5 player in this league that you don't even want to call his phone. That was so disrespectful, man. And Lamar, it hasn't been a great statistical season by him. It's been relatively good. He's probably still going to win league MVP based on what he's been able to do. But I just think he's going to make y'all pay for that disrespect. And I know a lot of people think the Texans are going to come in and maybe have their way a little bit, or make this a game. But the more I kind of thought about this matchup, I think CJ Stroud would look like a rookie in this game. I do think Lamar Jackson and what they're able to do in both the passing and the running game, he might utilize his legs a little bit more in this game than he has all season. They try to do a good job of maybe dialing back on design quarterback run, so to speak. But I think you're probably going to see some of that in the playbook. They just picked up Dalvin Cook. He's another body in the backfield that can help. Um, Thought they were going to have Mark Andrews back, but they won't this week. But maybe they can have him back for a potential AFC Championship game. Just looking team for team, coach for coach. This is what John Harbaugh kind of lives for. I think the Ravens are ready. I think the Ravens win this game, and I think people start to talk a little different about Lamar Jackson and really start to acknowledge the talent and the quarterback in this league that he really is. And so I think he's going to have a MVP defining performance against the Texans. I actually got them winning big, got them winning by like about 17. I got them winning big in this game. But honestly, the game of the weekend, we can talk about everybody else, but the game of the weekend is going to be the Bills versus the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, explosive offenses versus Kansas City. He has a pretty good defense this year, but can they hold a Josh Allen who can do it with his arm, with his legs, making something out of nothing? This is going to be one. I think this is going to be a fireworks show. I've heard a lot about the defenses, but guess what? Unless it's severe weather in Buffalo, which it might be, where it's snow and all that type of stuff, I think this will be a version of a shootout. Um, and look, the Bills coming off a dominant win, and the Chiefs coming off a win against the Dolphins as well, or Chiefs coming off a win against the Dolphins. I I just think, man, I can't go against Patrick Mahomes. Like, I get it. I get the dynamics. I get that this is the first time in Patrick Mahomes' playoff career that he's playing on the road. I get that Buffalo is crazy. That Bills Mafia is going to be buzzing, man. Josh Allen is going to be ready. Like, if they don't get it now, I don't know if they ever will. I really don't. So part of me is like, Bills, y'all got to make that move now. Because if you don't, you might have to blow it up. You don't have to blow the team up. But it's Patrick Mahomes. And I get it. He's just one person. But I haven't even mentioned Travis Kelce. I haven't mentioned Andy Reid. I haven't mentioned playoff Spags. It's just something about this guy, the way he gets his defenses to perform in the postseason that just makes no sense. Guys, you know how I feel like, I was a Giants fan and a big Eli Manning fan, and a lot of Eli's success came from the back of a Spagnola defense. So having that time to prepare, knowing that of the two quarterbacks, Josh Allen is a little bit more prone to turning the ball over. I think he has one turnover too many, and the Chiefs are able to capitalize that on that. But I do have the Chiefs winning this game by a field goal. I just think Patrick Mahomes has the ball last, and he does what he does, and he gets his team into position. And Harrison Buckner is going to hit the game-winning field goal and send them to the AFC Championship game that will take place in Baltimore. Um, and so that's where we are, man. Um, really enjoyed talking college. Really enjoyed, talking about that transfer portal. And look, like I said, the transfer portal is going to be the transfer portal. There's going to be changes coming, but it's a lot of things to look forward to, especially this weekend. You're going to see there's some more transfers around college football, where they're going, but also from the NFL standpoint, I think you're going to see some really good games. Um, this is probably one of the best uh, NFL playoffs we've seen in a while, just in terms of the parity. Look, I'm giving my opinion, but each of these games can go either way. The Packers could beat the Niners. The Bucks could beat the Lions. The Texans could beat the Ravens, and the Bills could beat the Chiefs. So it's just an opinion. I could definitely be wrong, because guess what? I was wrong as shit um, with the wild card. I'm just saying, like, I don't think maybe I got one matchup right, I think, out of all the games that took place. So look, I don't listen to this episode and say, Trey said this team gonna win, so I don't put money on them. Don't you blame me for putting that baby college money on these games. I'm just giving you my opinion, all right? But I'm going to enjoy watching these games. I'm hoping it's a great weekend for Alabama football. We got 4 or 5 guys in this weekend. I hope we can nab them. And I hope that Tuesday we are talking about some high level recruits. I hope also Tuesday I am giving you a recap that I was right about the NFL divisional round. And also, I know you see me wearing my Spurs. They got a game tonight, so we're going to definitely watch that. But also on Tuesday's episode, we're going to give a mid-year award, so to speak, mid-season award prediction. So talking about who's our mid-season MVP, who's our mid-season rookie of the year, defensive player of the year, six man, all of that. Who might be our coach of the year? Who are the teams that we think by the end of the year, based on where we are after the first 42, 43 games, what are the teams that we think at the end are going to be the top 10 in each conference? Going to a little bit revisit maybe my earlier predictions. So definitely got to go back and see what I had. I know I had the Spurs in the playoffs, and that shit ain't happening. So that's just something that's wrong right there. But going to kind of tally up, okay, this is what I initially predicted. This is my final prediction for the final top 10. And looking forward to in the next coming episodes covering the NBA more, covering both men's and women's college basketball a little bit more. Um, the UFL now is going to be coming up pretty soon in the next couple months. So excited to cover that. Know some guys that are doing some great things. Covering those respective teams in that league. So going to try to get some of those guys on the show, give us an idea of what to look for. But man, 2024 is going to be a great year for us. Great year for this podcast, great year for the sports teams that I love to root for, and just a great year for my life in general. And so excited to have you guys be on this journey with me. And so as I end, as I always do, if there was anything I said that may have been disrespectful, it's a good thing. Or it may have offended you, it's a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.